Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Major League Baseball season is finally here, and it's early April. We are going to start a brand new series of videos talking with SBR writer Ian Cameron, where we're going to take a look ahead to an upcoming series, think about which teams might be overvalued, undervalued in upcoming series, think about interesting pitching matchups, which pitchers we might be looking to fade or bet on. Does that sound about right to you, Ian Cameron?
That sounds right, Peter. Great to be with you talking Major League Baseball. I'm fired up for the season here.
Yeah, I like these kinds of videos when it comes to these kinds of discussions when it comes to baseball, because in general, teams can't, it's not like in basketball where things change radically from game to game. There is value in sort of like looking at upcoming series and thinking about what tendencies you would expect, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you look forward toward a series, like for instance, the ones taking place in the next few days, you're going to know starting pitchers on both sides, exactly how they match up well. You're going to have an idea of the lineups. You're going to have an idea who played well in spring training, specifically from a pitching standpoint. You're going to have some sort of awareness of the bullpens that both of these teams have, each of these teams have in these series upcoming. And I think the one thing that you want to focus on is things that the betting markets simply are not accounting for. Again, starting pitching is a big part of what makes the numbers, what makes the lines in Major League Baseball. What you want to do is you want to poke holes in those lines by looking at other things that are not exactly as accounted for in the lines, such as bullpens, such as starting lineups, defense, team defense, infield and outfield defense. Very, very important, an underrated, undervalued part of what makes up a good baseball team. Those are some of the factors you want to be looking at.
All right, sounds good, Ian. So let's look ahead. As of right now, obviously, we have absolutely no regular season in-game results. All we have are, prognostications and projections and all of that to go off of. And I guess let's start with the Cubs, right? Everyone's expecting the Cubs to, they're the favorite to win the World Series. Their first series is on the road against the Angels. Do you expect all that hype to make the Cubs maybe overvalued, or actually maybe do you think they're actually better than what they're expected to be, despite all the hype surrounding them?
Yeah, the Chicago Cubs are nothing but overvalued right now. This is not a team that you should expect to make money with game in and game out this season in Major League Baseball. I mean, you talk about teams that have maybe taken the most money in futures, odds to win the division,
right,
odds to win the World Series. When you're looking at teams like this, basically, you're going to have a hard time finding value with teams like this. And the Chicago Cubs, you look, for instance, at tonight's matchup with Jake Arrieta against Garrett Richards in this Cubs-Angels series. Jake Arrieta minus 140 favorite on the road. That's not what I consider good value. And for as good talent-wise, Peter, as the Cubs are, you have to look at situations like last year, how good they were for most of the season. But, they really took advantage of a banged-up St. Louis Cardinals team in the National League Division Series last year to win that series. And then in the NLCS, they didn't play just a bad series. They played a horrific series against the New York Mets in the National League Championship Series. I mean, they were outpitched. Defensively, they were miserable. I mean, Kyle Schwarber, the left fielder, was tripping over his own 2 feet in left field trying to snag fly balls. Their pitching was dominated really by the New York Mets. Their rotation was much better. I mean, a savvy baseball fan can't look me in the eye and say that the Chicago Cubs played big-time baseball in that NLCS, and that's a hump they've still got to get over this year. It's going to be all about winning in the postseason for this team. And as for the regular season, Peter, like I said, I think this team is going to be priced like the World Series contender that so many people think they are, and they are going to be an overvalued commodity. I'd be looking for spots to bet against the Cubs in certain situations early on in the campaign.
Okay, and let me just ask you an open-ended question about some of the other top teams around the league. The Mets are expected to do very well. Their series this week is on the road at KC. They already lost the first game of that series. Houston expected to do very well. They're on the road against the Yankees, and that game today was postponed, but it goes tomorrow with Keuchel and Tanaka, I believe, still slated to start. And then, of course, the LA Dodgers, a lot of issues in their starting rotation. They're on the road at San Diego. Do you have anything to say about any of those teams that you think might be particularly overvalued or maybe undervalued?
Well, you look at the LA Dodgers. They're a team worth discussing, Peter, because of the fact that they've been really decimated and hit hard with injuries in the spring. So many key contributors to this Dodgers team that are on the disabled list to begin the season: Howie Kendrick, Andre Ethier, Yasmani Grandal, a really good catcher for that Dodgers team. All of them dealing with injuries. That's going to be an important, tough hurdle, if you ask me, for the LA Dodgers to have to overcome And you look at tonight's matchup in the opener, you have Clayton Kershaw. We know how dominant he is, obviously, for the LA Dodgers. He's facing a San Diego Padres lineup that's obviously got some issues at times scoring runs. But boy, I mean, the Dodgers still have a lot of question marks in a lot of areas, like I said, battling injuries in the spring. And the San Diego Padres, the one thing I expect from them this year, Peter, they should be able to pitch a little bit, specifically in Petco Park. And of course, this series taking place in San Diego in Petco Park, a ballpark that might be able to work out well for the likes of Tyson Ross, tonight's starter, Andrew Kashner, James Shields, guys like that on the San Diego Padres rotation that maybe be able to benefit from the confines here of pitching in Petco Park. I mean, the LA Dodgers, they right now, especially when their ace pitchers are on the mound like a Kershaw, they're an overvalued commodity in my mind. Doesn't mean they can't win the game, doesn't mean they won't win the game, but it doesn't mean I'm rushing to the betting window to lay these kind of prices with them in spots like this.
Okay, and then what about teams we might be looking to bet on, or in the early going, and maybe with some of these early series? I made one play on Sunday. That was Pittsburgh over. Oh no, I made two plays. I also bet the Mets on the first five. Very embarrassed to admit that, but I did have a winner on the other one with Pittsburgh over St. Louis. And Pittsburgh in general feels to me like a team that might be a little bit undervalued. People are expecting them to be good this year, no question, but they're not quite one of the top elite teams that everyone's expecting. A World Series team necessarily with a great shot. I'm thinking maybe Pittsburgh might be a team with some value. What do you think about Pittsburgh at home against St. Louis?
I definitely agree. There's no question. I mean, when you look at the NL Central, the thing you want to keep in mind with the NL Central basically is that, the Chicago Cubs, it's going to be hard pressed to be a team to make money with game in and game out because they're going to be priced like an elite baseball team. And the St. Louis Cardinals, for years and years, they've been the darling of the National League Central, just have dominated this division for years. But they've definitely got some issues that they have to overcome early in the season specifically. So when you look at it, you look down to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pittsburgh Pirates are among the lead MLB leaders in wins since 2013. It's been a very good ball club, particularly since Clint Hurdle took over there as the manager. And there's definitely a lot to like with this Pirates team. They should be able to pitch pretty well. You obviously have to love Andrew McCutchen, the guy that certainly stirs the drink, I guess you could say, for the Pittsburgh Pirates team. Got off to a very good start, beating the St. Louis Cardinals on Sunday. There are a few concerns, at the back end of the rotation. The bullpen should be pretty solid, in terms of the lineup. I think it has improved a little bit this season. So when you look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, if the Cubs aren't going to win this division, if there's one team in this division that can overtake the Cubs and maybe pull, I guess you could say, a minor upset to be NL Central champions, it probably would be the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think there is some value and money to be made on this team throughout the early part of the season.
All right, of course, we could talk about every team and every series, but let's wrap it up. Let me just get your thoughts on any other team from the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series that you think is interesting and worth mentioning right now that we didn't get to yet.
Sure. And I mean, we're going to look at one team in particular that I want to keep an eye on early on in the campaign this year, and that's going to be the Texas Rangers. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Texas Rangers are being discounted, Peter, in this in the AL West division. Not discounted. I think people know that this is a very good Texas Rangers team, but the Houston Astros, to me, have gotten a lot of hype, similar to the Chicago Cubs. And why does that concern me? Because these hype teams, they get all the hype from ESPN, from Fox, from all the big baseball networks. They sometimes don't live up to the hype. They crash and they fall under the pressure of all the hype. Not necessarily saying that's going to happen to the Houston Astros, but there's now a lot of expectations on this baseball team. Obviously, they've got a great rotation led by Dallas Keuchel. They've got Carlos Correa, phenomenal future star in this league, George Springer, Preston Tucker, Carlos Gomez. They've got lots of solid players up and down that Astros lineup, but I think not enough people are talking about Texas because Texas got into the playoffs last year, really could have beat the Toronto Blue Jays in the American League Division Series. That went 5 games, and we know about the Jose Bautista bat flip heroics in the 7th inning to preserve that series win for the Jays. But Texas was right there in that series, played very well. Their rotation looks solid, anchored by Cole Hamels, Derek Holland, a lefty that I think he can bounce back and have a better season. You do have some concerns maybe about Colby Lewis. but I like Martin Perez as well in this rotation. And what I love about Texas is they can hit. They have got a very solid lineup. Adrian Beltre, Prince Fielder, Josh Hamilton, Shin-Soo Choo among them, all can hit the ball very well. And this bullpen is loaded with high mile per hour, high velocity pitchers that can absolutely flamethrow the baseball. I mean, fastball pitchers that can mow down hitters late in games, get a lot of strikeouts, save games for this team in the latter stages, and preserve leads late. So there's a lot to like about Texas. I think they're a more complete baseball team than people think, and would not shock me in the least to see them give the Astros a run for their money in this division. If not, maybe win this division and get it over the Houston Astros in the end.
All right, so they're at home against Seattle this week. You, in general, would expect them to have some value in that series?
I would, even today with against King Felix, and I respect King Felix a little bit, quite a bit, obviously. And the Seattle team actually is another team that could go under the radar, is a team that could be better than the betting markets anticipate. But to me, Texas still the more complete baseball team, and King Felix has had some trouble in the past against the Texas Rangers. He doesn't have the greatest numbers against them, so I think Texas has a chance to get out of the gate pretty strong. And again, just looking forward, not only in this series against Seattle, I think they can win this series, but moving forward, keep your eye on the Texas Rangers. They might be able to offer some betting value.
Okay, sounds good. Ian Cameron, thanks so much for your time. We'll talk to you again later in the week.